I see the brighter lights. It is the month of July. And what better time to talk about one of my favourite albums of all time, The Great Cold Distance by Katatonia. Just for reference, it is currently 30 degrees here, Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, I don't care. It's too warm. It's too fucking warm. The Great Cold Distance was Katatonia's 7th album, released in March of 2006. It's part of the 2000s run of the band that is, in my opinion, one of their most solid runs of their career. Katatonia's discography is pretty diverse. They started out in a sort of death doom style with their first 2 albums, peaking probably in that particular sound with Brave Murder Day in 1996, before then shifting towards the more melodic goth metal sound that they were more known for in the late 90s, before then transitioning again to a more alternative rock and prog rock tinged sound that they were honing throughout the 2000s, starting with 2001's Last Fair Deal Gone Down. Great Cold Distance is probably their most well-known, or at least well-respected albums, mainly because it's got one of their, or probably their #1 biggest hit of all time, My Twin. We'll get to that in a moment. The band then, after this period of time, transitioned into the more darker doom metal, but with a more further perspective on the melodic and progressive rock sound that they have basically maintained up until today, up until the most recent album, which will be coming out soon, Nightmares as Extensions of the Waking State, which I am very looking forward to whenever that comes out. But we're talking about one of my personal favourites of all time, and probably my personal favourite of theirs. The title of the album, Great Cold Distance, I think really helps to convey just the general tone and sound of the album. Despite the fact that I'm recording this in the middle of a heatwave in the beginning of July, and there's a track called July on the album, hence I'm doing it. This album has a deeply autumnal, wintry, cold feel to it. It feels cold and it feels distant, but with that distinctly modern, almost quite cinematic production and the layers that just sound like this could be, any track of this sounds like it could be used in some soundtrack of some mid-2000s action movie, soundtrack. And I mean that in the best way possible. The band at this time was formed by lead vocalist Jonas Ringsa and lead guitarist and lead songwriter Anders Nyström, with at the time the rhythm guitar and bass being made up by the Norman twins Fredrik and Matthias respectively, and the drums being played by Daniel Lekvist. Or Lekvist, I'm sorry, Swedish is hard to pronounce. I'm sorry. The album starts off with the track Leaders. Immediately you are thrown in with this ominous, dissonant guitar intro before the heavy, down-tuned riffs come in and set the tone of just this cold, dark, foreboding vibe that is just so prevalent on this album. This was around the time that the band really started properly tuning down. Previously, the early stuff was mainly in E-flat standard. In this album, and I think the one before this, Fever Emptiness, they started tuning down to C standard and dropped B-flat. And you really get that low, thundering, foreboding vibe from this track right from the beginning, with the dynamics between the heavy choruses and the quiet, subdued, but still pretty foreboding verses, pre-choruses and whatever. It just perfectly encapsulates that vibe and that sound that I just like so much. It's, again, got that really cinematic sound to it and vibe, and I'm pretty sure there is a mix of it in surround sound, surround audio, which I had a chance to experience that at some point, and that is going to be really nice. One thing I'd also like to point out about Katatonia's sound is how they play around with quite heavy instrumentation, but with quite soft and melodic vocals. You see, Jonas started out performing harsh vocals, but had to stop due to improper technique and damaging his vocal cords, so he moved more towards melodic vocals. But while he certainly isn't, his range is by no means limited, he maintains this soft, mournful melodic tone throughout all of their songs, almost, that just is this, at first, quite an odd contrast to the quite heavy instrumentation sometimes. That with instrumentation this heavy, you'd expect some level of harsh vocals here and there are in, you know, in various parts in their catalogue, and on this song in particular, but it's used very sparingly. In fact, I'm pretty sure, I don't actually know if the harsh vocals, which are nothing more than just sort of these screams you get sort of like kind of in the background, they're quite distant, and no pun intended. I'm not sure if they're actually done by Jonas or by Anders or by another member, but it's just these little moments that cut through. But even then, the choruses, it's still got this soft, quiet, but still equally kind of mournful, but still kind of a foreboding kind of snark to it at the same time. It's quite difficult to really like put into words, but it's just so distinct and is one of like the main parts of what makes Katatonia's sonic footprint, at least in their more modern sound and era. Following that is track 2, Deliberation. So following on with that sound, you get again that dynamic with louder, heavier choruses and soft, atmospheric, dark sounding verses. It's one of the few singles released off of this album and has its own corresponding music video as well. It's got that dark tone with sort of kind of societal commentary-esque lyrical content with the lines of "She has to sleep behind the glass, aware of crime." Also with like one of the first lines in the beginning of the song is "Let the rich meet death." So clearly some message going along with this song. But going on to track 3, Soil's Song. It's one of my favourite songs on the album. It shows their early on playing with the more progressive sounds they were messing around with the drums playing around in a 3/4 polyrhythm. With a 3, is it 3/4 or 3/2 polyrhythm? I can't remember. Basically, the cymbals are doing I'm a scat man. The cymbals are doing a grouping of 3, while the rest of the drums are keeping the cymbal for 4 beats. So when you're focusing on it, it sounds like something that would be really difficult to pull off, but in the song it's a nice little subtle extra element there as well. And again, with the interplay between the 2 guitars in the sort of the clean melodic lines in the verses, that way they interplay off each other, sort of playing the same thing but slightly different in just ways to add that extra depth and little details that just keep you coming back and keep it interesting on repeat listens. And the main riff in the chorus, as simple as it is just so effective with just that simple chugging. And just when they hit that perfect little pinch harmonic, it's just good, nice. I like it. The bridge as well also sees them go into more sort of non-diatonic territory with quite dissonant chords playing around. I'm pretty sure it's a minor add 9 chords that they just kind of slide around the place and have these really kind of weird modulations and chord things. And there's a funny little, there's an interesting little change up with the time signature. Well, technically still staying in 4/4, displacing the where they hit the chords at like that quiet bit in the before the final chorus, where technically it can be considered, I think, a bar of 3/4 and a bar of 5/4, which technically does meter out to just 4/4 overall. But it's just those little subtle proggy things that makes it taste good in the ears, if you know what I mean. That was weird. Their next track, My Twin, their most well-known or biggest hit, as it were. This is, again, pretty like standard as you do come to expect from Katatonia's sound, that gothic, alternative metal sound with mournful lyrics about heartbreak and whatever, and again, that interplay between the dynamics of the sounds and that kind of stuff, of where it just, you get the little bites of distorted guitar in the verses, and then when the chorus comes in and absolutely just, and again, more little interesting time signature play around with when the bridge comes in, where they completely change it up and it goes into 3/4, but then the drums split up and playing duplets, I think, or duplets, I can't remember what it is, but it's sort of, the drums switch to a 4/4 pattern, even though the overall time signature turns to 3/4. It's quite difficult to explain to people who don't know music theory, but because I've recently been trying to cover this song in the band I'm in at the moment, and I was in charge of programming the drums because we don't have a proper full-time drummer, and it's such an interesting little switch up that sometimes you don't notice, but it just has these, it just takes the song in a direction that you weren't expecting, but then just, it still has that power, that bite, and without at all sacrificing their distinct atmosphere that they craft on this album. Track 5, Consternation, is probably one of their heaviest songs on the album, with just a straight up hard-hitting riff right from the beginning. This is where the biggest contrast and discrepancy is between that just super heavy riff and Jonas's quite soft, melodic vocals. And it sounds like it may not work, but it does. And it just adds this kind of, on the one hand, kind of uncanny edge to it, while also maintaining that strongly melancholic, dark and cold feeling. So on this album, Jonas sounds like someone who has just experienced so much misery that they are just completely beyond it, to the point that they're almost just completely emotionless in a way, which again sounds like it would make it sort of dull and flat, but no, it just adds to that, the depth and the dynamics and the emotional power of these songs. And particularly with the title of this track, Consternation, sort of dealing a lot with trauma and that kind of stuff, like the lyrical vibes. And going off what I just said, it kind of sounds like it's got the vibe of someone who's been through hell and nothing phases them anymore, but equally kind of lost hope in a way. That's dark. Let me get some more funny time signature play arounds with track 6, Follower. Technically, it's like I said with that little bridge part in Soil Song, I'm pretty sure this can technically be metered out to 4/4, but just displaced slightly. So I think it's like a bar of 7/8 and a bar of 9/8, which overall meters out to 4/4, but just the way they put the emphasis on certain things, and there's like little hits there, and it's like, well, that bit goes a bit too long or a bit too short here and there, that just trips you up. It's just such a cool little moment with that. And again, starting off with that slow, quiet, subdued, cinematic atmosphere, before then, of course, going into the heavy guitar and instrumentation in the chorus. One of my favourite aspects of this album, outside of the musical content, is the artwork that goes along with it. It just has that dark, foreboding feel and vibe to it, while also still maintaining that strongly cold vibe. Even though it's just black and red tends to be like, it's a warm or quite hot colour, it still maintains that cold, wintry vibe somehow. And it just, actually in particular, where is it? Where are you, you bastard? I had a t-shirt of this album, if you'd seen in some previous videos. This is it. There we are. Used to be wear this in previous videos, and I just, had to get it on the t-shirt because I love this album, I love the artwork. So of course the main album front cover has, somebody in quite a sense of distress, but also equally on the back you get these sorts of foreboding characters as well. And in particular, the first how I discovered this album was somebody had uploaded it in full to YouTube, as people tend to do, and it just sort of flips between the different artwork throughout it, and it's just, that is equally what drew me in. And I'm pretty sure someone in the comments said I hadn't even heard of this album, just thought the artwork looked cool and clicked on it, and that's pretty much exactly where I was. I suppose I was sort of aware of Katatonia as well, but hadn't really properly checked them out. But yeah, once I got into this album, there was no turning back. So a couple more tracks in again that vibe and style I've described. Moving on to the final single of this album, July. So again, it's one of their more accessible songs as far as it goes. It's a simple riff just going between C minor and B flat sus2, because of course I know what the chords are, I'm a nerd. Again, the way it does a similar thing with My Twin, in that when the bridge comes, it just completely switches up, and you get this really heavy, rhythmic, palm muted riff in the bridge that I just, I love the melodic sound of the chorus and the verses and just all of that. But when that bit hit, again, it's that little left turn that you're not quite expecting. It just shifts it up just enough for it to be, you know, slightly off-putting, but still powerful. Just genuinely one of my personal favourites. It's very, very good. So it's dog's out in the garden. He's rolling around in the grass. It's very cute. If I can show that. He's there. Hey, come on. You gonna roll around more? As soon as I get the camera on him, he stops. Of course he does. But yeah, in the extended version of this album, there are extra tracks and even some interesting remixes. So there's an urban dub remix of the song In the White, which has, you know, it's an odd thing, but just again, the atmosphere that the band conjures, I think it really lends itself to atmospheric sounding electronic stuff. So it's an interesting kind of sort of alternate take on the songs, which if you're interested in that, then it's there to listen. Actually, on the subject of the song In the White, it's probably one of the most sort of dejected and mournful sounding songs. That main melody, it sounds so familiar and so, you know, like something that has like pre-existed and being all over the place, but not in a way that I can necessarily pinpoint. And it just has that, almost in a way of feeling like it's really just lending itself to an all-encompassing depression and sadness. And I promise I'm okay, I just like this kind of music, okay? So this reminds me of actually, it's semi-unrelated, but when I was back at uni and I was with my housemates, and just a caveat, a lot of these housemates, well, pretty much all of my, you know, housemates were into the same music as I was, at least that's what I thought. And I was listening to, I don't think it was this album, but it was something else, like something that I wouldn't actually consider sad. I mean, it's not like super happy upbeat pop music, but you know, it's sort of like, wasn't depresso metal like this. And I was just listening to it, just enjoying it on like Bluetooth speaker while I was just, you know, in our common room. And then one of the guys was just like, Alfie, yeah? Do you ever listen to any happy music? What do you mean? Like, this is my happy music. You know, it's whatever. But hey. But yeah, I'm trying to keep these videos shorter than they were before because of just the amount of rambling I had a tendency to do. But overall, this album for me is it's up there as like a 10 out of 10 for me. Genuinely, it's one of my personal favourites. And if what I've described about it appeals to you, then go give it yourself a check out. And what the fuck did I just say? It's too warm. It's too hot. I can't be dealing with this. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you whenever the next video is. Whenever, I don't know when it is, but it'll be whenever. So yeah, enjoy. I'll see you then. Goodbye, enjoy, and yes,